What's up, Ravens fans? It's time to hear from you guys in this week's Ravens Mailbag. Lots of questions about what the Ravens could do before training camp begins next month. We'll start with this one from Different Breed. And the question here is, would the Ravens be willing to give up a first-rounder for the pass rusher, Jadeveon Clowney?
No, I don't think that the Ravens would end up doing this deal. Do I know that for a fact? I don't know. Eric DeCosta make this next week after I say this, but who knows? I don't see it happening, though. I mean, I think that Eric DeCosta is still very much in the mold of Ozzie Newsome and doesn't like giving up draft picks, especially first-round draft picks. It's one thing to trade a second-round pick to get your potential franchise quarterback. It's another one to go all in on a pass rusher. I think the Ravens want to see what they have in some of these young pass rushers, and let's not lie. Even if you give up a first-round pick, and it might be more than that. I bet it would be more than that. It'll probably be a first and a second, maybe even get a player in there. There's been some media reports that, Matthew Judon could be involved in a potential deal. I don't see any of those happening because it's just so expensive. Not only is it the picks, but it's the contract for Jadeveon Clowney. He's going to get probably $55 million guaranteed,
right.
About $100 million. I mean, yes, the Ravens have more salary cap space moving forward because you have Lamar Jackson on the rookie contract. You have a younger team, so you can make some moves, but I don't think that the Ravens would go all in on one player like that.
Here's the thing, too. You bring up the second-round pick. Even after the Ravens made that trade last year to trade up and get Lamar Jackson using a second-rounder, Eric DeCosta said after this year's draft that he didn't like that. He didn't like sitting there for the entire second round. So if you're hesitant to give up a second-rounder for a potential franchise quarterback, are you going to be willing to give up a first-rounder and then have to pay that guy?
And maybe a second-rounder.
Yeah. That's probably the baseline. So I agree with you. I would be hard-pressed to see having this happen. So, all right, let's keep it moving here. The question comes from Zach Gardner, and the question here is, will Trace McSorley, the sixth-round pick, have a distinct role in the Ravens offense this season? Well, this is really interesting. I think that, first of all, Trace has to worry about making the team. I mean, I think that's the first and foremost thing. He has to play well over the course of training camp and during the preseason. But if he's on the roster, the 53-man roster going into games, then he has to play well enough to prove to the coaches that he can be active on game days, which is another hurdle in that equation. I am kind of having a hard time figuring out exactly what that role would be. Taysom Hill has been the guy that everyone has compared Trace to in terms of what that role could look like. But when you look at the Saints, one thing that's different is that you've got Drew Brees, who's such a traditional pocket passer. Taysom Hill does something different.
Right. Drew Brees ain't running that much.
Right. The Ravens are already going to run the ball a lot with Lamar Jackson, so if they bring in Trace McSorley, I don't think it would be necessarily to run the ball.
It's not as much of a curveball.
No, it's not. No, I think that what they could do with Trace is maybe find some gadget ways to get him on the field. I don't know, maybe you throw him a pass and then he throws a pass, those types of things.
And really, the question is about offense, but if Trace is going to make the team and be active on game day, a lot of it's going to be for special teams. What does he do on special teams? Maybe potentially as a returner or just in other roles on special teams, and Trace actually talked about that with us.
Yeah, I mean, he has the potential to be a punt returner. That job is open. I mean, he's got to prove himself there. So I think there's still a lot of hurdles to climb. I think that he's got a ton of talent, really interesting, dynamic player, but I don't know that we're at a point right now where you can say, here's his role, he's going to play 10 snaps a game on Sundays.
Yeah, I agree. Last question comes from Boyce Evans, and the question is, what or how much of a role do you think Zach Seeler will play on our defense this season? I really like Zach. I'm high on him. I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Can't come on. I'm on first.
He claims. I'm glad you claim to it. All right.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about Chris Wormley and Willie Henry, and I think for good reason, because those guys could step into more of a role with Brent Urban leaving in free agency. But if you look at the player and the body type that Brent Urban was, and who matches that most closely, that's Zach Seeler. Just a big dude. I mean, he might be one of the Ravens' strongest players. He might be the strongest Raven on the team. This dude,
Brandon Williams might have something to say about that.
All right, maybe not.
You're getting a little ahead of yourself right now.
He's really strong. I'm saying like pound for pound.
Okay.
Pound for pound, I bet Zach Seeler is the strongest guy on the team.
All right. I don't know if I'm going to agree with that,
But I have to follow that up on that one. But I really like Zach. Flashed a lot in the preseason last year. Come back in practices. He's looked really good. Tall guy getting his hands on a lot of passes. So do I think he's going to be a 16-game starter? No. But I do think that he's going to be a key part of that rotation and probably somebody that we're not talking enough about.
All right, so that's all the time we have questions for this week. But as always, we love to hear from you guys. So send in those questions every single week using the hashtag RavensMailbag. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.